So the agenda for today is just giving all of you a basic overview of what HCM is, kind of talking to you a little bit more about Workday. Then we'll dive into the business objects, talk about basic navigations, and hopefully we'll be in the tenant at that point so I could show you the navigations there, and then about the landing pages. So before we even get into this, to talk a little bit about Workday, so maybe you guys do know, maybe you don't know, but just in case, I don't know everybody's background. How many of you have been already introduced to Workday, and how many of you haven't? Workday is just software as a service, what we call SaaS, and I have like more than 15 years of experience with SaaS companies, and what that really is that Workday is kind of in charge of making sure that all the hardware, the servers, and everything like that, they kind of take care of that on the back end. All that the customer is really subscribing to is really the software to be able to use it, and making sure that the updates are taking place as possible, and that people don't really have to invest that much in their IT department. It's really about like admins being able to do their job and their day-to-day. And Workday, in terms of HCM, is human capital management. So being able to take a candidate through a worker and then terminating a worker. So all those different phases, there's a lot involved. It probably sounds very simplistic, but there's a lot of transactions, a lot of tasks, a lot of reporting. So everything for admin facing stuff is involved there, as well as for the worker, right? Like when you go in and you're maybe putting in your time, you could be adding benefits, you could be looking at your pay stubs and different things like that, updating your contact information. So the worker, employee, self-service tasks, as well as the admin facing tasks, like making sure that the recruiter is able to hire, making sure that the payroll team can go ahead and run payroll accordingly, and everybody's getting their appropriate pay stubs, and the benefits that are being elected, that those employees, they're receiving the appropriate benefits based on the elections that they have. So all that stuff is really kind of what makes up HCM. All right, so there's some core concepts, but before we go into those core concepts, sorry, I'm going to be jumping between screens. There's a couple of things that the presentation doesn't fully have, but I wanted to make sure that we kind of touch upon in terms of vocabulary, the things that I'm referencing as tenants. So what Workday has done, and before, when Workday was just kind of in its infancy, they used to only have a production, sandbox, and implementation tenant. And what that is production, of course, this is kind of like their live data. This is what the admins are going to see real time, and this is what employees that are going to log into Workday are going to see at real time. So that tenant is just their live data. Then there's the sandbox tenant. This tenant is basically kind of how it implies, like when kids go play in their sandbox, they, just kind of play around with stuff. And so this is really entailed to kind of being able to do some troubleshooting, changing settings and stuff week to week. So production information is being transposed every week into their sandbox tenant, is being brought in. So that way you have kind of almost not real time, but only like kind of a week's worth of stale data in your tenant. And this is really to allow like kind of like super users or the admins that have a lot more access than the employees to go in, troubleshoot if there are changes that they need to make. Let's say that there's a new report that they really, heard from leadership that they really need. They'll probably test it out in Sandbox before they go ahead and make those updates in production. Or let's say they're rolling out something really important and they want to make sure that they're continuing testing something before it gets to move to production. And then recently, in the past several years, they added something new, something called Preview. And what that is with Workday, because they're a SaaS company, they're constantly doing updates. A while ago, I'd say several years ago, 5 years ago, it used to be pretty disruptive to customers because they'd constantly be pushing out code, new features, new bugs, updates to resolve them and stuff. But sometimes they'd have bad implications, right? So let's say I fixed one bug, but then I introduced 2 other bugs, and now those 2 other bugs are in production and they're causing me different, let's say I'm the customer, they're causing me different kind of issues. So now what they've done is every time they're going to do some sort of update, it first goes out to preview. And generally the guideline is that it should go out 4 weeks before you see that update in production. And also they've kind of moved their releases from being, before it was like, willy-nilly kind of, you could just go ahead and update in their normal maintenance window, which was every week. So every week on Fridays, tenants go down and there was like a maintenance window. And in that maintenance window, they would apply their bug updates. They would also release new features. So like I said, that was pretty disruptive. So now what they do is that they push all of that out to Sandbox Preview or their preview tenants. And they'll make sure that in 4 weeks' time, it'll show up in both Sandbox and production. And then with the bigger releases, instead of it being first day, it was kind of like every week, then it turned into every couple of months. So there were, then they moved to 4 big updates where like big, meaty kind of features that you'd kind of have to, that you wouldn't be automatically opted into, or the ones that you needed to be opted into would come every four times in a year. Then customers were still complaining that that was pretty disruptive because, again, like many customers aren't just implementing HCM. They may be implementing financials. There's like so many other things that they'd be implementing. And so that's a lot of change management that's going on, and a lot of training materials that are probably being updated, a lot of things that need to be tested before they're actually moved to production. So now they've moved to big releases only happening 2 times a year. And the way that they talk about these 2 releases is by the year, and then they have release 1, release 2. So just this past weekend, 2021 R2 just took place. So you have for this year, what it took place is 2021 R1 and 2022 R2. So the other piece that I didn't talk about is the implementation. So this is probably where many of you, hopefully, if you go into the consulting role, will probably, the tenants that you'll probably initially be dealing with. So implementation is strictly that. When customers are implementing, they will go ahead and purchase these implementation tenants. So when they actually are live in production, they'll have these 3 tenants for sure, part of their subscription. But if they're in the implementation phase or even post-production, they'll actually have to pay for these tenants. I'm not sure exactly how much and how that subscription works, but when they ask for implementation tenants, this is like when, let's say they've gone live on HCM and they have another timeline to go live on financials. They'll make sure that they have these implementation tenants, that they've bought these. They'll continue testing with the consulting team or their partner team. And then this kind of follows the same kind of thought process as Sandbox and Sandbox Preview. Implementation will have a snapshot of what generally your production is. And this does not get refreshed on a weekly basis, but you'll have to ask to refresh this implementation tenant from production, or maybe even another implementation tenant. And this is kind of not getting those meaty features or those new features that they're pushing out. It's really these preview tenants that are going to be getting that. So I know that was a lot, and it's more just background, and it's helpful like when you do move on to working with Workday. Your customer should generally hopefully help you walk you through this, or the partner team that you're working with. So just wanted to make sure that you had that kind of background. Strictly, all these tenants are going to be the client's data, right? Because they want to make sure that the sanity checks that they're doing and the testing that they're doing is based on their specific data, the data that's going to be coming from their production tenant. Something else that I'll get into is before, so when kind of Workday was kind of new, and not many customers knew enough, and it was kind of new in the ecosystem as well. They still have these tenants called GMS tenants, and kind of like what you were saying, around, like in terms of having just kind of dummy data or these kind of training data. That's what was in that tenant. So it's called a GMS tenant, and what that stands for is just Global Modern Services. And so they created this fictitious kind of company, and it really was helpful in the ecosystem, even internally, I think in Workday, to showcase like how you can do certain transactions, and to be able to look at this fictitious company and see kind of like the demo data, how things should be set up, how things should be configured and stuff. So now, before it was just generally available, and that again I think was more of a marketing thing, and really to help customers understand all this kind of power of one is what they call it in Workday, like how you could do many things, and it's really important to have everything in the cloud and everything kind of at your fingertips. Now, because they have like a large customer base, and they provide, like, you can get all these different tenants, and the partner team, especially in the HCM, is definitely more mature, very resourceful. That GMS tenant is no longer just kind of free for somebody to just play around with. But that's where you would see that fictitious kind of dummy data. So all of this, when you go to a customer site, when they have these tenants, it's going to be their kind of live, real data according to their specific company. I already spoke to you about Workday tenants. So just a couple of things before we move into back into the other slides is the other thing, workers, what are they called in Workday? So you can have, I've mentioned employees, but you could also have contingent workers, right? These consultants, people that are contracted workers. So those are called contingent workers. And then all these types of employees, there could be many types of employees, right? Full-time, part-time. So all of that is configurable in Workday. And supervisory or business process related actions, you could just take a look at it, but I'll go into a little bit more detail in a little bit. So one of the core concepts listed here is supervisory org. So there are several different types of organizations in Workday, and this is kind of the core, kind of the foundation of Workday. And you'll see we'll kind of spend a lot of time in terms of exercises, and I think the next session will also be kind of focused on this. And again, as implementers, you'll kind of need to know this really well. And after the first couple of times, of course, maybe in this training, like this specific session, it may not make as much sense, but believe me, there'll be enough activities and enough kind of us talking about it that hopefully this will make sense. But in Workday, these supervisory orgs can be, it's not only specific to HCM, it also happens in financials, it also happens in student, for those of you that know about the student space. And these orgs can be cost centers, they can be companies, they can be matrices, but for purposes of HCM specifically, what we're going to be talking about here is we'll talk about supervisory orgs. And again, like I said, they're very crucial and kind of like the backbone for when you're implementing and understanding this HCM module. And what the objective of these supervisory orgs is really to provide kind of like a building block to, once you have a supervisory org, so like kind of like the top level, so let's say it's the name of the company, then you have other orgs that are kind of tied into it. So let's say department org. And what this does is just kind of provide a framework to be able to hire people into Workday. So I'll talk a little bit more about this, so it helps kind of reinforce the concept. So the next thing that's listed here is about staffing models. So this kind of helps these companies define, how do you want to staff or hire these people into the specific department. Like I said, you have like an org at the top level, supervisory org, that's let's say the company. But then like a company has different departments. You have an IT department, you have the payroll department, you have the benefits department, there's a number of departments. But the staffing model is basically saying, kind of providing the framework for what's the jobs and positions in these specific departments. So there's two types of staffing models. There's position management and job management. So we'll get into that a bit as well. And then there's job profile. So let's say I'm ready to hire, you need an open position. So what this job profile, it's not mandatory, but what it kind of helps with is define generic characteristics about the job. So let's say you want to know basic, like it's kind of going to require like the same basic education, their responsibility, the years of experience that you're looking for. So let's say, for example, like, I know in like my IT department and some other departments that I'm going to be hiring developers. So what I'll do is come up with a job profile for these developers. And again, kind of highlighting the responsibilities that are in common, the basic education, years of experience. So the whole point is to reduce kind of the number of times that you're going to have to enter the same type of information over and over again. And so it just makes it easier when you're hiring people that there's already these job profiles configured. Then the next core concept is around compensation. So there's a couple of things that are listed here: grades, grade profiles, and plans, and compensation packages. And really, all of this combined is this compensation package: the grades, grade profiles, and plans. So grade is kind of like giving a range, like how much do you think you're going to pay for this given position. And then the grade profile is based on, like, let's say location or maybe experience level. That's kind of what I generally call the salary band, but it's kind of again, like the salary range for a specific position. So let's say for a developer, depending on, like, if I'm in California, that I'm going to pay anywhere from 125 to 175 for like a junior developer. So that would be kind of the grade profile. In terms of plans, plans are just kind of extra allowances, right? Like sometimes some companies will offer like car allowance, or maybe they're going to give like a spot bonus or retention bonus, or now, since like in this day and age, a lot of companies are hyper focused on employees' well-being. So they might give some sort of fitness sort of allowance, like here's $50 for the month, and you could figure out, like, is it the gym, is it other things that you'd like to focus on with that money. So all of these things, again, combine grades, grade profiles, and plans kind of make up that compensation package. So security is probably one of the gnarliest things for folks to kind of get their head around. When I'm saying gnarly, just in case if you don't know what that word means, is just kind of a little, not hard, but you have to play around with configuring security. And it's one of those things that makes more sense as you are working through it. But we will, again, this is another area that, I believe there's a specific session, we'll go through it. And the best advice that I would give, and something that helped me a lot, is just playing around with it, right? Like sometimes it's good to talk about concepts and kind of just get a basic understanding, but it really helps to go into a tenant and start configuring things. And this is so important. In Workday, it's like one of the things that they kind of not pride themselves on, but it's more that this is so important to this whole SaaS model, right? Like if you think about it, generally customers used to have to be the ones that kind of owned it, since they own the servers, the hardware, and everything like that, in making sure that they had the appropriate firewalls and everything's set up, and that hackers were blocked from this critical information and very sensitive information. But now all that kind of ownership is on Workday. And the day that there's any security breach, that's when kind of you'll see all customers kind of fleeing. We kind of see that, right? Whenever there's some sort of a security breach. But because this is all in the cloud and they kind of own like everything, and all you're subscribing to is the software, it's really important for them to provide you the tools to secure your information. But a lot of the onus is also put on them to make sure that all this sensitive data, right? Like if you think about it, a worker And what human capital management is all about is like all this super sensitive data, like personal information, the biodemographic data, SSN, their benefit enrollment. So the security has to be solid and not be able to be hacked, but they also have to provide their customers the ability to, depending on your specific role or what the admin is specifically doing, that they only get to see the data that's most relevant to them. So you'll see as you're configuring things, like if somebody, if I'm logged in, let's say as myself at a specific company, and I'm doing self-service tasks, I shouldn't be able to go to another profile, an employee profile, and see data that I shouldn't be seeing, something like SSN, and now even contact information and things around like their gender, what pronoun that they want to use, or anything like that. So it's really up to the customer how they want to secure the data. Workday is definitely providing the tools, and at a high level, making sure that hackers are kept at bay. And just something else to mention, the way the security kind of model works in Workday is users get, like, let's say, again, like I'm an employee of a company, I'll get access to the tenant through a username, but that credential is tied to a security group. And so the security group, let's say I'm part of the payroll team, and they've created in the tenant, there will be a group that's a payroll group. And even by being added to that security group, that won't do anything. Now I'm just kind of lumped together with a couple of people that have probably higher access than most people to payroll, or they should. What I need to do further is there's things called domains. And these domains are the things that kind of give you access to either tasks, reports, or specific data. So that security group will now need to be tied to a specific domains. And there's a number of domains, and I could, when we get to that piece, I'll show you that piece in a little bit. So I know even though I said very high level, and it seems like a lot of information, but it is really high level, and it's to kind of lay the foundation for stuff in the later sessions that we'll be talking about. So another key area is around business processes. So all this is kind of just a workflow, a way to kind of follow a workflow of events or tasks that need to happen in a certain succession or a certain sequence, and the approvals and all that stuff. So let's say I'm going to hire somebody, and basically I'm just going to follow a process. As you can imagine, there's a lot of unique tasks that I want to follow in this specific flow. So it's basically lumping all those tasks together in a BP to make sure, again, like they're following a specific order. So when I'm hiring somebody, the candidate first needs to apply, then there's the recruiting life cycle that goes on. And then when I'm ready to hire it, then let's say I could be kicking off the hiring VP, and that's going to trigger like the compensation, the offer letter. Once they go ahead and accept the offer, then they'll get a Workday account, maybe payroll gets started. So VPs, there's in Workday, they give you kind of default VPs. So they're just kind of these templates of the VPs already configured to kind of like a standard. And then the customer, based on their specific needs or the way that they want the workflow to be tweaked, it's very configurable. They can go ahead and configure it. Or let's say they need to have, hiring is done differently in different departments, right? So they can keep on copying these VPs and configuring it how they like, according to the specific departments and the requirements of that department. So sorry, as soon as you said activity guide, I'm thinking like, is there an activity in this training? I'm sure there is, but if I understand the question correctly, it's more that it's in the tenant, it's kind of just laid out for you as steps, grid, and it's just laid out for you in steps, and you could change the order of it. You can configure it in terms of like who needs to approve it. You may say that, the payroll team needs to approve like any changes with payment elections or something like that. So it is very, it's I was going to say it's user friendly. I guess like it really depends. I have a lot of experience in it, so now I kind of know all the different quirks and stuff. But in the beginning, it's going to be just kind of looking and kind of feeling your way through it again. And after a little bit, it's pretty intuitive. You kind of set the order, you say what specific tasks you want it to trigger, who you want it to trigger for, and if it can be moved on to the next step or not. Okay, so another key thing about Workday is around business objects. So the way I think about, and it's a pretty powerful thing in Workday, and basically this these business objects or object action model is basically everything is an object, and you'll get to see that in the next slide. Everything is an object that you can take an action on. So let's take, for example, what's listed here, an organization. You can take like actions on the organization. You could divide it. You could add a supervisory org. Let's say the organization needs to be moved under another department. Now it's kind of like a subsidiary or a subordinate. So you can move things and shuffle things around and take action on it. Probably an easier example is like a worker, right? A worker has so many pieces of data on them that are kind of tied to them. So one of the things that we talked about is personal information. You can go ahead and put their contact information, which will be one sort of object that's kind of tied to the worker. You can put their benefit election that is tied, another object that's tied to the worker. And so it's kind of building all these relationships to a specific object and being able to take action on every specific object. And that'll make probably, again, a little bit more sense once we jump into the tenant. So this is kind of like a graphical view of what I was just talking about. Like you have a worker, right? They have, just like I said, they have a Workday account, but then that Workday account needs to be tied to specific security groups to give them access and permission into what they should be seeing. Then they also have compensation and, you know, what their salary is or what their salary history was, or the bonuses, the allowances that I was talking about. Then they have their contact information. And then their position, let's say they have a manager position for a specific team, that's their position, but what sort of roles do they have assigned to that position? What job profile was that position? Like what did they use when they were creating that position? What job profile did they use? What management level, what job classification, and all of these are those object action models. In each one, you can take actions that are specific to that object. So over here, this is probably the easiest example. If I'm a worker and I need to update my contact information, I can go ahead and take action on that address object. I won't know, right? Like when I'm looking in the tenant, you'll get to see, you don't get to see all these relationships. Like in this graphical view, it's just kind of all just visible there, and you don't need to maintain it as implementers. This is all kind of done by Workday already, kind of building these relationships. And what they're giving you access to is the ability to take specific actions on that specific object. So on the address, I'm updating contact information, and it may trigger certain BPs or anything like that. But again, it's this whole concept of object action model, being able to take specific actions on an object that's kind of all closely related to this main worker. So hopefully you guys are being able to see my Workday tenant. So I'm logged in as Logan McNeil. Are you able to see this? This is the Workday tenant. It'll look a little bit different, depending on configurations. I know many of you are probably, if you've had kind of like Sriram, like you have PeopleSoft experience, there's a lot of kind of customizations that customers used to be able to do to kind of get around things or something like that. Over here, the customizations that customers get to do is more around like what you can see and what information, like again, like configurability around like the BPs and the information that's showing up in the UI. But that is what's different from kind of customer to customer. But in terms of the underlying software, everybody's kind of always on the same update. So if there's a feature that's been pushed out, it's pushed out to all customers. So all customers are going to be impacted almost the same way. They're going to see the same. Let's say if all of a sudden they decided, like Workday recently had decided, I think 2 releases ago or 3 releases ago, to start masking sensitive data like social security number. So instead of people just, an admin that had access to social security number, they would just go ahead and see just the numbers. But then they realized what they really should be doing is masking that data that was coming up as a key request from customers, that we want this data to be masked, and like additional kind of ways to unmask it. And so now you get to see an asterisk. So that's something that was pushed out to everyone. So it's everybody's always on the same release. Everybody has the same access to the same tasks, like in terms of the super user and stuff. So there's very limited in terms of customizations that you can do there. But the customizations that you get to do is more about like, how should this screen, which is basically kind of the landing page, look like? What should the banner be? Every customer. So let's say Chipotle, they might have like, their Chipotle logo over here, and their kind of branding of the colors and stuff like that. So that's kind of the customizations that you can do. So over here, just kind of walking you from top to bottom. So over here, this W, this is kind of like clicking home. It'll just get you back to this specific page. This search, so they just moved it, I think, this release from, it used to be off to the side to into the middle. I'm sure they probably were doing a lot of UX research, where they're reaching out to users and with their designers and stuff, and seeing like what makes sense and where the placement of things should be. So even though this might seem like something small and a very small investment, this has larger impacts to at least Workday when they're pushing out something. So they wait for major releases. They make sure that they communicate things quite heavily. So I'm sure something like this was communicated well in advance, but it probably had a lot of customer input for just even moving the placement of this. And something else that I should bring up is Workday has a place called Community, where you can see documentation for Workday. You can be able to ask questions. You get to see videos about new things that are being pushed out. There's different forums where people kind of collaborate, ask questions. Sometimes the product team on the Workday side will go ahead and answer it. Sometimes other consultants will answer it. The ecosystem is pretty good with helping one another out, because they know if we, and maybe you've kind of seen this with the other areas outside of Workday, that, if you can help on a specific project, you may just end up moving to that partner team later, or in the future, you could be answering their question next time they might be answering your question. So it's a little bit of give and take there, which is really nice. And that community access for Workday Community is kind of given via the customer when you're on, let's say, a customer project as an implementer, or it could be through the partner. So you get access to that. So that's a good reference point. One of the best areas probably to reference, like if you run into any trouble or you want to understand new functionality, that's a good place. But you only get kind of access like once you're certified and you're on a specific project. So I know a little bit tangential to the search window, but the search window is kind of pretty powerful. This is how you kind of navigate between different tasks. If you want to see different information in the tenant, you kind of use this. And you can go ahead and type in kind of over here, somebody typed in already, and it kind of keeps the history. So you can go ahead and just type in the whole task name if you know it. But let's say, I'm either lazy or I feel like something should have supervisory, or like I know that it's something related to supervisory. I go ahead, click type in supervisory, click enter, and then now I'll get to see like things lumped up into specific categories. Or these are two people that kind of have supervisory, it turns out in their title, not specifically their name, but that's why they're being highlighted. I can go and see further information if I wanted to. This again, like is a new kind of UI update, more recent. Otherwise, it used to just be kind of a list. Then there's the other piece over here, like there's tasks and reports. That's, I could look into it further, view all 37 tasks and reports. And then, before this was kind of defaulted where, I could search by different categories. Let's say, I'm specifically looking for something around security. I could just go here and it filters the list down. So, and you can configure your search as well. Like, let's say you want it to specifically look in a specific place. Like if, let's say I am the benefits person, or let me just go back to my payroll one. If I'm always looking for tasks that are kind of related to payroll, maybe I'll just configure my search to always just default to that rather than taking these clicks here. So it might not be as useful maybe as implementers, but let's say you're configuring it for someone, or I'm a power user that's really for the payroll team again, like I might just want to configure my specific search to always just show up with payroll so I can reduce the number of clicks. Something that Workday is trying to focus more on is around user experience now. And I mean, they're continuing investing in different areas of focus, but really around user experience, I feel. And then the second area is that they've been hearing from customers is reducing the number of clicks. Again, like many of you can relate, like if you're a power user and you're kind of doing the same task over and over and over again, right? Like some of the tasks become very redundant and it becomes almost annoying and not as efficient as some customers would want it. So they're trying to figure out where they can give configurability or reduce the noise of the number of clicks of like clicking OK for something and then clicking confirm and all this stuff just to get you the same. You could have just done that maybe in 1 or 2 clicks rather than the 4 or 5 clicks. And again, for those power users, those additional clicks become quite annoying. So let's go back to the home. So that was the search. And the other thing I guess I should point out is like, let's say I know that it's create supervisory org, right? Instead of typing it all out, I could even do like, I know, just put abbreviations of some kind, right? And it kind of will get me the same task. So you can type it all out. You could just type one word and know that hopefully maybe you don't know the task name, but it's somewhat related to supervisories. You could just type that, or you could just type in the abbreviated version. So hopefully this kind of shows you that it is pretty intuitive. The other thing that people find helpful is using prefixes. So, let's say again, like I'm looking for a business process. So I know business process, the prefix for business process is BP. So I'll just put BP : and then let's say I'm looking for, hopefully it's called that in here, is the higher BP. And I can find the ones that say default definition. This is again, like the ones that are kind of out of the box. As soon as you get the Workday tenant, this is what's already available. And if I click on that, here is, of course, this wasn't as nicely done, but this is the basic BP. But what I really wanted to show you is that how you can, if I had just typed in higher, I would probably get so many different hits on this, like the results, and it would be again across like people, security, all this other stuff. But because I put this prefix, it's kind of doing that filtering that would have been done on the side if I had clicked maybe business process. But now everything that's showing up here, as you can see, is a business process definition. And like I said, I already know the ones that I've been using quite heavily. But let's say the prefix, I didn't know what prefixes are out there. What you can do is do this, hit the question mark, and it's kind of giving you this help text of like how, like if I'm searching for a specific worker and I just wanted to just pull this up, or if I knew I have like this report and there's an ID and I don't know who this is tied to, I could just do ID colon. But here's all the different prefixes that can be used in Workday. So, as you get more familiar with Workday, you'll probably know this like the back of your hand and be able to navigate this pretty easily. I'm trying to think of a good task that could get me to it, but if I'm logged in as an implementer over here, I'm logged in as Logan McNeil, so I can't possibly see that information. So maybe this will help answer your question, because I can't think of a good example of something that I could go to right now. Let's say I am looking to deactivate like maybe an org, or yeah, let's just take that for an example. There's things called usage counts, and it'll show you everywhere where that's being used. So you just click into it. So I don't have it'll be like, it'll just say like usage over here, somewhere here, let's say. And just like how this is clickable, it'll be a number and you could just drill into it that way. But there's a way to see it, but you won't get it through this search. Okay, so as you can see, I am logged in as Logan McNeil, and she's kind of in these GMS tenants, the ones that I was saying, these fictitious tenants. Again, like that Workday used to before, kind of give for free, and customers could look at it, see how things are configured, kind of play around with it. But now it's not as readily available. You kind of have to pay for it. But she's one of the power users, and or what we even kind of call super user, where basically she kind of has access to a lot of different things. So you can do a lot of different things, and it kind of helps you to be able to play around with the tenant and the security and all that stuff. So her first thing over here is view profile. This takes you directly to her profile, and I'll walk you through this in a little bit of actually everything that's on here, but this kind of gives you all the information about her and being able to take actions on her. But let's go back to over here. This home is the same as this home. So it's just, again, like providing flexibility and ability to get the user, give them kind of like access in different ways, right? Like just make it a little bit more intuitive. So if I'm here and I just wanted to go back to home, I could do that, or the W. So you'll see some things kind of seem redundant, but it really helps the customer specifically to be able to navigate from different places. So then the other piece is my account. Let's click into that. So this will give me access to my organization ID. Let's say I want to change my specific preferences. So this is just for Logan McNeil, because she's the one that's signed in, and hopefully it takes me there. But I could talk about my preferred locale. So let's say I am in a different part of the world. So I want to see information based on that type of the preferred locale. But I could have a different option there, but my preferred display language, I want to keep as English. So this could be something completely different, and this could be in a different language as well. So this, again, these preferences are really, again, just for the specific user that's logged in. Then something called Workbench. So what this is, it kind of looks very similar to the landing page, but it's around here, like the applications that I want to see, the inbox items that I want to see, which is tied to this. So I'll talk about that in a bit. And then sitemap. This is super helpful. Is, just like I said, there will be specific task names that you'll know because of just getting more and more kind of exposed to it, more comfortable with it. But let's say I know that I need to go to account provisioning, right? Like this is those Workday accounts, and I want to update a specific account, or maybe let me find something else. benefits. So I'm looking for a specific report. I know like it has to do with benefits, but I don't remember the name. I'm going to look through this sitemap and see what sort of reports are out there, or that might get me the specific thing, or I'm looking for, let's say, a specific task. So here's a specific task. So this kind of just helps you find the tasks and report names that you need. So that way you could either just drill in from here, but it also, you know, after a while, let's say, you know now the name, then you could just go ahead and put this information in the search and be able to get to it as well. So this is just a way, because you can just imagine after a while, you know, you're creating custom reports for the customer as well, and you just want to be able to see, and you don't remember all the names, right? Like going from customer to customer. So this is a great place to be able to see that information. Favorites, you can just go ahead and favorite the specific task or the custom reports, and you can manage your favorites here. And then audit, we could just, these are just the audit reports. Drive, this is where it's kind of in a way like Google Drive, but not many customers are using it as much unless like you have analytics and stuff. You need something called this W Drive, but I'm just going to skip over it. My reports is when a report, let's say you have it to run, let's say every month, and it's going to be delivered to your inbox and stuff. This is where those reports may be stored. Or let's say it's taking some time. You ran a report, it's going to take some time. There'll be a pop-up that shows up that says, notify me later. It'll go ahead, notify you later, and then you'll be able to access those reports here. Documentation and help are kind of the same thing. This is where these go out to that community website. So that Workday community, that forum where you could see documentation, be able to ask questions, look at other people's questions. There's videos there. There's other meetings that Workday kind of, there's a word I'm looking for, that kind of not sponsors, but they have, like, let's say, a monthly meeting for implementers or for a specific area for, let's say, benefits or payroll. And you could subscribe to it, and every week, every month, let's say, or maybe every quarter, they have these meetings to kind of let you know what are the big features that are going out, or what they're looking at, or maybe the roadmap and stuff. So that's this specific menu over here that you could kind of go through. Then, Sriram, going to your thing, this over here is the notification, not the notifications, the inbox. And it just looks like an inbox tray, right? Like, I think it's kind of looks like, you know, the file tray, like before when it was kind of paper, like you put the paper here, you need to in this tray, and this is kind of the work for the day. So this is basically like, and it has nothing to do with your Outlook inbox. It's really like all the actions that you need to take are part of this inbox. And what that is so any approvals that you need to do, or you're looking at, let's say, maybe a compensation package, and somebody's proposed a certain compensation, you don't want to approve it, you're sending notes back in there. Or like over here, I need to fix a certain business process because it wasn't configured appropriately. Let's say this one is review move to a manager. So this position is being moved. This is a promotion for Jack Taylor. And then now he's going to have a new manager, Adam Carlton. I can review additional details about it. And I can make updates also as Logan McNeil. And then I can enter comments like, hey, this looks great. And maybe I'll just do it. Hopefully I don't mess up any other training that was just about to happen after this, but hey, this looks great. I'll approve. And I approve, or you saw I could have added approvers, I could have denied, and this is letting me know, hey, you approved it. And then what happens is, once I'm done with it, this should move into my archive. So I should be able to see. So now that this is in my archive, and the archive kind of lasts from 30 days, you can go ahead and do sorting here if you wanted to, but it's always good, like, a lot of times you might be doing a number of things all at once, configuring, approving things and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, who did I just approve this for? I'm not sure. So you could go to the archive tab. So this is where you're really just taking actions on different things that are coming to your inbox. So unrelated to your Outlook, but specific to the tasks that are going on in Workday. So if I needed to approve certain items, or like, again, like it's process, it's all these tasks are kind of following some sort of business process or part of some sort of workflow. So if I'm listed as an approver in that workflow, or one of the approvers, then I'll get to see it. Or if there's an issue that most likely I need to take care of based on my security and stuff like that, just like this one, it'll let me know that I need to fix the business process, and I could say I'm going to restart it. And this is what I was talking about, Sriram. Like, if you're looking to see where something is being used, or kind of like all the tie-ins, over here, it'll be a similar account thing. It'll just show usage over here, and then you get to drill in to the number that's related there. So hopefully that answers a couple of your questions in terms of, it's not tied to Outlook. It's basically like kind of like an action inbox that you need to specifically take in Workday. So based on where you are in the workflow, and if you're kind of listed as an approver, you're going to start seeing items in here. You can set up notifications in the tenant. There's tenant notifications. And what you can do over there is say, like, does this person also want to be emailed? So even for me, like when I'm doing anything in Workday, because I have notifications turned on, and for it to go to an email as well, I will be notified. So it doesn't have to be, it just depends on your configuration. But of course, if I'm logged in, I would want to see what I need to do. And so this inbox will let me know. But you will get notified if you have everything set up correctly to your Outlook. If you'll have a specific link, it'll tell you, like, give you the basic information without putting sensitive information on it. You click the link and it directly, like, let's say it was that job change again, like, hey, this job change is waiting for you, or that manager promotion one. I would have clicked on that link and it would have exactly like the way I was viewing it. It'll take me to that specific inbox item, and I'd be able to do the normal thing. What I can't do in the Outlook email is do the approvals or anything like that. You have to come into Workday to be able to do that piece. So then the next piece is around notifications. So notifications isn't anything where you have to take action on. It's just kind of notifying you that either a report has finished that you wanted a report to finish, or if if you had notifications set up for to let you know when a specific integration finished, or over here kind of just like what's going on. Like in my org, let's say Logan is subscribed to a couple of things, it's just notifying me, hey, oh, Jordan got a promotion. For somebody like me, maybe it's good to know that information, because I want to go ahead and let the team know. I was waiting for this promotion to go through, and now I'm going to go ahead and announce and send an email to the rest of the team letting them know, hey, Jordan's been promoted, here are his new responsibilities, join me in congratulating this person. So notifications, you're not really taking any action on. It's just kind of informational only. And then this last thing over here is where you put shortcuts and my most used apps. And so this is, again, configurable by the user that's logged in. So you can add shortcuts. Let's say, there's specific tasks, again, reports that you continually use. And like I said, Workday's now objective, or one of their many objectives, is how do I reduce the number of clicks? How do I make things easily accessible for these kind of power users, and give them more configurability about what they need to see? So this is what is here, and something that the customer can configure. And then going back to here, the main landing page, like I said, they can go ahead, put their own banner, they can configure all the apps that are kind of showing up. The UI from release to release looks a little bit different, but a customer can configure this basic landing page. Let's say announcements. I really didn't want it here. I really want it up here. And it's like, I'm a new hire. What is the information that I'd want a new hire to immediately see? Maybe like it's a welcome message from leadership team, or maybe it's like, here are key objectives for this year by the company, or like over here, company picnic, all that stuff. And then this is very similar to what I was just showing up above, which is the shortcuts. And then over here is just reminders that might be coming through the company, like, hey, performance reviews are coming up. Did you do check-in with your manager? So all of these are configurable, and it's through the different worklets that you can go ahead and do that. There's certain ones that the company probably has set up as required. Then there's other ones that are optional, and I could change them as a user as I want it to show up here. I mean, they won't have access to maybe the, like, say I'm not a power user and I I'm just a person, just an employee, an admin, let's say, right? I might not have, like, I'll probably see this information, right? Because I should be able to do my pay slips, all this other stuff. But let's say I might not have access to reports and other tasks, right? Like I should be able to look at payroll or do anything around payroll and stuff. So I like, for maybe that admin that has that configured, and as long as they have security access to it, it'll show up here. But if I'm just, a normal employee with not too much access, then it won't show up here. But generally, it'll follow kind of the same kind of layout. So let's say I configured it that I wanted a certain report to show up here, like for payroll runs or something like that. But if I went ahead and I configured it for the whole, what is it called? For the whole company. But because as an employee, I don't have access to payroll, it won't show up. But whoever has access to payroll, it'll show up here. They changed a little bit of the UI. So this is what they have as their dashboard. So you have the power to configure that information. And then, just like how it's showing up here for benefits, if you've configured one for the employees as a manager, this will show up. Something similar to this. All right. So the other thing that I will go ahead and talk about is the profile. So, earlier I was talking about those object action models and how like all the information is kind of tied together. And this is a good, maybe hopefully way that it'll kind of show you how everything's tied together, right? I'm not doing anything to put these relationships in. Workday has already done that. They've coded that in. But basically, I'm seeing all this information about Logan McNeil. So all her job detail information can show up, and these are called summary cards. You can configure what summary cards show up, and everything is kind of tied to, again, security. So if I'm going to Joy Banks, again, I'm logged in as a power user, but let's say, I was a normal employee and I was trying to find out who the chief human resources officer was at this specific company, which is GMS. And I could view this information, but let's say I'm, for whatever reason, I wasn't, this one is labeled public contact information, but let's say the company doesn't want to expose that information or doesn't want every employee to see it. They can go ahead and set up security where I can see possibly everything else that is open for everyone else, but maybe I can't see the contact information, no matter if it's listed as public or private. So that's where security comes in. Again, like I said, all these cards are configurable. So maybe, one company doesn't need everyone to kind of see the education information or the job history. So they can pick and choose which sort of cards they want to show up here. And then the other thing that they can kind of pick and choose is all this information that's showing up here. So the job, when you click into that, you can see information tied to the jobs, and the same thing with contact information. So every area is kind of grouped and what information can show. So all of this is also configurable. So let's say, I'm configuring this tenant. I want contact information to show. So just high level contact information, but maybe I don't want emergency contacts to show up. And I really don't care for that in my Workday tenant. So I don't have to show that. And the other thing is around, let's go to personal, maybe that'll be easier. So they have, before it was something called related actions. It was kind of like these 3 dots that are showing up over here, where you can kind of take action on something. So again, like I'm a power user, I can go ahead, like this is the race ethnicity in the tenant. So I'd have to configure all the different race ethnicities in the tenant. And one of them is the Black or African American. And I could, as again, a power user, maybe the ethnicity code, now I want it to be something different, or I want to go ahead and inactivate it, because Black doesn't necessarily just mean that they're African American. That could be maybe something else. And it's set up for this specific country. So what I was mentioning a while ago, right? Like all these objects are kind of tied together, and this UI is just rendering all those different relationships that this worker specific Joy Banks has. And then all these pieces of data, if I can take action on it, you could do that through a related actions. And now they've kind of moved some of the stuff to these action buttons as well. So there's 2 ways, like again, the related actions. As soon as this page loads, I could change the gender if I wanted to, date of birth, or do any of that and submit it. Or, these, this one doesn't allow me to do it because I'm already over there. So I think now they're using more of these buttons rather than the related actions. But those are the 2 ways that you can go ahead and kind of work with the data that's being presented. But the UI is basically being able to just render all that different relationships, all the different data that's tied to Joy Banks. Yeah, so let's say I'm Joy Banks, right? Like, and right. It's maybe, I don't think she has 100 people, but I don't know if you just saw, like I just clicked on the org chart. I mean, there's a number of ways, right? I could go ahead through the org chart. I feel like for customers, it's easier just to navigate through here. And I'm looking for a specific employee. Maybe I know that that person reports to Robert, and I could just further drill down this way. And sorry, I'm not sure why there's so much of a delay, but and I don't see that person here. So I could drill down that way, a little bit manual, but at least, sometimes I've even noticed, like, I know that what that person looks like, but I might not know their name. So this is where this becomes a little bit helpful. And here I could see all the members, right? Like, but I'd have to, again, I think that person was part of Jake's team or something like that. But if I know that 100 people are reporting and there's no, for whatever reason, no middle managers in between, I should be able to see all those members part of this supervisory org for the team that I'm managing. So here was kind of like that navigation demo. I showed you the home, how to get to the landing page, the search, the Workday icon, the profile, and all the different areas underneath that, right? And how they're kind of, how to navigate to them and what they're used for. So I think we spoke about all of this. Give me one, an activity. So if you guys don't mind using, leveraging the chat window. So I'll just go through. This will help make sure that I've kind of solidified, or we review again for the folks that missed it, or maybe I went through it too quickly. Kind of matching the definitions with the correct terms. So the first one allows a group of users to access an item in Workday. Which one do you think that's related to? So security will decide what the user has access to in Workday. So that's really, really important. So thank you, Krishna, for that one. So 2, defines how jobs and positions are created and filled in supervisory orgs. So we're working on 2 right now. So defines how jobs and positions are created and filled in supervisory orgs. So that would be the staffing models, right? So this is where you're creating, like, in this specific department, what are the jobs and positions that are going to be available, and that's done by staffing models. So you'll be able to hire into those specific supervisory orgs. So I'll move on to the next one. One or more tasks that accomplishes a business objective. So basically, in a workflow, what are the unique tasks put together that accomplish a business objective? And of course, business objectives, it'll differ from department to department, team to team, and even company to company. So business process helps you accomplish that. So 4, groups workers into a management hierarchy. I don't know if the exclamation question mark is yes, supervisory and maybe supervisory, but I'll just take your answer. So that's great. Thanks, everyone. And defines the characteristics of a job. Yep, job profiles. That's correct. And then the last one includes objects such as packages, grades, and plans. I think that's the last one. So compensation. Great. So this one, we can go through this activity also, if you guys don't mind. What is the name of the icon that allows you to view information or perform tasks on a landing page? So this was basically that W, the home kind of thing. Then true or false, search, and I'm hoping, Sriram, you can answer this, is and everyone else. So if you could do it through the chat, I would love that. Search allows you to use partial searches, abbreviations, and misspelled words. Is that true or false? Oh, what is the name and location of the icon you should select when you want to act on or make changes to an object? No? Okay. So that's that related actions. So those 3 dots that, you could either click into that link, but when you hover over it, you get to see those 3 dots, and then you could go ahead and take actions on it. Something that they're kind of moving away from, as you can see, like sometimes they just put the buttons to make it easier. Not everybody knows about the related actions, but that's, between the buttons, the edit buttons, that if they're available, those, or the related actions, those 3 dots that are available. And then true or false, security and business processes are considered cross applications and impact all Workday solutions. Yeah, true. So, this is something, it makes sense, right? Security, I should be able to, once it's configured, that's what's going to dictate what everyone can see or not see. And the same thing with business processes. You're following a workflow, and that should be consistent through a business process, is what's going to be affecting the different tasks and the kind of succession of things in a workflow.